Hello and welcome to this edition of VOLIFE and Gravy for the Brain in Oceania, the interview, where I talk to people who are big in the voice industry and are doing amazing things, and basically try and get a roundup of, what everyone's doing at the moment. And really, the woman of the hour at the moment in voiceover land is my friend and colleague, Bev Standing from Canada. Welcome to the podcast, Bev.
Oh, thank you, Toby, and it's a thrill to be here.
No worries at all. Thank you for coming. So you are based in Canada. You're one of the territory controllers for Gravy for the Brain, and I had the big pleasure of talking with Graham Spicer, your colleague. You're both based in Canada. How are you guys going with COVID at the moment?
We're still in lockdown, but that's coming to an end. We're getting better, I think. We still can't travel to a lot of places, but our vaccine rollout is speeding up a little bit. So we're getting high in the percentages of single doses, and we're working towards a double dose. So hopefully life will return to somewhat normal again soon, I hope.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, that's good to hear.
Especially for us, because it's summer. Well, it's almost summer. So when you have months and months of cold weather and you finally get nice weather, it'd be nice to go out.
Absolutely, yeah. It's not nice to be cooped up indoors with the warm weather, is it? Especially if you've been cooped up indoors already. So, and life is certainly not normal for you at the moment with the recent sort of revelations that TikTok were using your voice illegally, effectively, because they had sort of got hold of it somehow. For people that haven't kind of come across this story, and I have put a few links so that people can, but just give us a quick potted summary of of how you first found out that they were doing this and sort of what the mechanics of that are.
Sure. And I'm happy to, because there's a really important message in all of this. So I'm happy to share it. Back in November, Bridget Rial, also with Gravy for the Brain, sent me a TikTok video through Messenger and said, "Is this your voice?" And I went, "Oh, yes, it is." And then she sent me another one and said, "What about this one?" And I went, "Oh, that one's my voice too." And then the next day, my daughter sent me one and I went, "Oh." And then someone else in the family sent me one and it wasn't quite as polite. And I went, "Oh." And so I downloaded TikTok because I wasn't a TikTok user. And I figured out how to use the text to speech feature. And lo and behold, there I was. And I've had people recognize my voice and they go, "But how do you know it's you?" Right? Like, that's not all you. I did a text to speech job 3 years ago where I read 10,000 sentences. And we'll just jump right in. For those of you that have used TikTok, text to speech, I read 10,000 sentences like this. And this is the TikTok voice. And it is unmistakable. So I knew instantly where the voice had come from. The problem is TikTok is not my client.
Absolutely.
So the question is, how did they get it? I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I mean, you as a sort of a relatively famous voiceover artist will have usually had people coming up to you and saying, "Oh, is it your voice on this commercial? Is it your voice on this?" I'm sure you get it as well, because I get it all the time, and I'm like, it's not me. It doesn't sound anything like me, or sometimes it is me. Yes, but
Exactly.
I imagine it would have felt a little bit like the start of one of those conversations until it was like you say, like the fourth person suddenly, something's up.
And the fourth person within 24 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, as soon as it started, people were messaging me.
Yeah, that's terrifying, especially when it could be that you're saying anything, that's the text to speech.
And I was.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was. And you want to pay me to say something? That's my choice. This is not my choice.
Absolutely. Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, I can sympathize as well as a voiceover artist, because in the last 3 years, I've done text-to-speech jobs as well, where you do read an awful lot of stuff in a particular voice, and it's kind of long and grueling as well. I mean, the sentences you read are quite bizarre sometimes as well. So take us back to that moment. That was not for TikTok. That was for a different client. Something to do with translation.
That was 3 years ago, and it was for a company, a gentleman that contacted me directly, and he was in Edinburgh, Scotland.
Is that right?
And I agreed to do the job, and I asked him what it was for, and he said translation. Used 3 languages and then -US English. And I went, I would love to be the voice of a translation. I knew it would be dissected. I knew it would be taken apart. I knew it would be a robotic interface for translation. So when it came out that I was the text-to-speech voice, I went, wait a minute. That's not it.
Yeah,
That's not what I agreed to. And again, TikTok's not my client. So you can't you can't do it in the music industry. You can't do it in the art industry. You shouldn't be able to do it in the voice industry. And if they can do this, have they used it elsewhere? And I don't even know yet. Like, we don't know. They could have used your voice and you just haven't heard it yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it shows up one day without your knowledge or authorization, and it's just wrong.
Absolutely. I mean, this is such an important case for all voiceover artists because, like I say, I've done at least 2 text-to-speech jobs, probably one of about that size and one, that's a bit smaller, for a very specific topic. But then if there is some kind of way that they can take what you've done and then use it for anything, I mean, that's just, that opens you up to all kinds of horrible things. So I think this is a really important case. And we were all kind of waiting for this case in a way because we knew how dangerous the text-to-speech, the concept of it was, that you could, take someone saying something and then like the deep fakes, you could just pop up somewhere else saying something completely different because the technology's reached that point. And so I certainly knew that there would be a case at some point of this, and I just didn't know it would be you and someone that was
I didn't know it was going to be me either. No. I'm kind of happy it's me, and I'll tell you why. I get to stand up and maybe other people would have just gone, hey, I'm the voice of TikTok. Yay. But that wouldn't have helped anybody in the industry. So I feel like this was handed to me on a silver platter because somewhere the universe went, she's going to say something. Let it be her. I don't know. But I believe in standing up for what's right. And I believe in doing it in a positive way. I'm not bad-mouthing anybody. I'm not throwing any negatives out there. This is technology. And when the world, I don't go back into this business, I don't think, as far as you, I don't know when you started. 1990?
Probably 2001 was the very first.
Okay. So when you started, you were going to studios, you'd go into auditions, and very, very quickly it started, you could do some jobs from home, and people panicked. I don't have a home studio. We go into the studio. I don't know how to edit. The engineer does all that. And the industry adjusted. And I think we're just at that point now that technology is caught up and we have to adjust. But if this didn't happen, the conversations about usage and the conversations about, usage is always there, but not to the extent that we're looking at right now. We have to be really, really clear when we do these jobs. You can't sell my voice. You can't use it for another app without my permission, without talking to me and creating boundaries and whether you'll want to get paid for it or not. If it was something that you were passionate about and you didn't care if you got paid, that's your choice, but it should be your choice. Absolutely. It should be presented to you. We're selling this, we're giving it to these people and they want to use your voice. Now you get to have the conversation with that person or that company. And I think this hopefully will be the grounds that make this happen.
Exactly. And I didn't really think about it like that it's kind of happening. There's a few different facets to this in effect, because there's the kind of just the pure business angle of it's my property, you've used my property for your gain, so therefore I'm entitled to some of that value. But also, like you say, the reputational angle, which I think is probably more striking, is with the TTS, is that they can bring your brand into disrepute, right? And that's kind of a violation of your integrity as a voiceover artist.
Yeah, I have no say. And my brand is my choice, my say, my decisions, my everything. I'm an independent person, like business. And you can't just go and change my logo. You can't just go and use my voice and make it say whatever you want without my approval.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah. It goes so much deeper than, they used your voice, you should get paid. And I'm getting a bit of that, it's all about the money. And it's funny. One of the very first emails I got was extremely negative, and it's all about the money. And I hope you lose. And I hope it costs you thousands in legal. Just put your voice back. It's just a voice. So my brain says, this person just appreciated the fact that they liked this text to speech voice and they'd like it back. They just don't know how to say it nicely.
That's so true. And I don't know if you would have seen the videos that are circulating on YouTube about there's millions of people saying bring back the old TikTok voice. There's so many memes flying around about it now.
I haven't seen them all. I haven't really had time. I've been completely overwhelmed with the attention this is getting. And my days are now, what time's my next interview? And I'm agreeing to that because the message is so important. Like I said, it's not about Bev getting justification and payment for what she did. That's this much of what this is all about. And I got flowers from a friend, and she said, thanks for standing up for women everywhere. I mean, it doesn't matter how you look at it. This could have been somebody that would have rolled over and gone, wow, I'm the voice of TikTok. Isn't that great? End of statement. And it would have destroyed our industry. Yeah. So I'm kind of happy that I've been put in this position and have the gumption to do this. But I don't do this alone. I do this with the entire voiceover industry. I can't believe the support I've gotten.
It's brilliant. And thank
for
you.
For all those reasons, though.
Yeah, thank you on behalf of the industry, for taking this on, because it will take an awful lot of time. You're putting yourself out there as the sort of the face of this campaign. And you've done it in a brilliant way. I have to say, your branding on this has been excellent. The hashtag Standing with Bev is genius.
I wish I thought of that, but I didn't. Actually, somebody else came up with it. They also said you should do hashtag Standing with Rob. Rob Skiglin-Paglia is my lawyer. He is also a voice talent, so he understands the business. And he's located in the U.S. where TikTok's offices are. So it all kind of, and I knew Rob, so it fell into place. But the other one is when this goes to litigation and there's some rules in place, which I hope happens, that helps everybody work together in a really cohesive way. It's positive for both sides, that they call it the standing clause. Got the perfect name for this.
Absolutely. No, that's fantastic. And the other question I've heard sort of circulate is whether the unions have been worried about this, SAG-AFTRA and some of the other unions, in terms of who control who works in voice and who's paid what, etc. But they haven't really made a big thing of it, and hopefully they can kind of join this in a way, or somehow exert what influence they do have in joining.
I'm hoping they stand up and, I'm not a union member. I'm not. It's SAG-AFTRA in Canada and AFTRA in the States, I believe, and I'm neither. But I hope they stand up and listen, because there is some talk to this. And there's going to be more and more companies that hire you to do your thing. And then you might control your voice. You might have the say of who can use it. And that would be wonderful. And it would be like a passive income. I would think the union would want to be part of that, So I'm hoping, again, by being this public and accepting requests for interviews and talking more to people and spreading the word that it's not just about getting paid for your work. It's so much bigger. I'm hoping the union does step in and go, you're right, we can lend a voice, because everyone I've talked to, whether they're union talent or not, whether they're agents, casting directors, we're behind you 100%. They may just be waiting to see what happens with it, but at some point, I'm hoping that they join the support, at least, exactly. By verbally saying we're behind you on this one.
Yeah, brilliant.
Because it would be good.
It would be, fantastic to have that support. Another thing about TTS that's been kind of like the flip side of it, because it has been kind of doom and gloom, like the robots are going to take our jobs like every other industry. But there has been the TTS companies I've been talking to, there's a couple of them who are really kind of doing it for the voiceover angle. And what they've described is that they're developing like voice print technology, so you can effectively copyright the sound of your voice when it comes to AI. But not only that, but they're trying to design platforms so that like voice actors like me and you can go on and effectively create like a costume, if you like, which is like a character in a voice game. So you'll create a character and then say a bunch of different words to make that character real, and then they can make that character in the game say anything they want, and they pay you like per character or per player or something like that. So there are some glimmers of hope that technology could also be the solution in terms of having these digital voice prints and the ability to have basically like a pay to play, but for your TTS voice, which
you'll own it.
Well, you'll own it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where this passive income will come by. And again, it comes to, you used to be in a studio, then you had to figure out how to be at home. Now we have to figure out how to work with them. And those are the companies I'd be happy to talk to. because they get it. They get that it is your product and that you should be paid for the work you do, but they want to work with you on this. And technology is going that way. Why not make it work and stop the pushback?
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because they need the voices originally in order to make this work. And if they get this terrible reputation, it's not going to work in their best interests.
No, and I've also heard for video games and stuff, they'd be using that for more background characters and stuff, as opposed to the main characters are still going to be voice actors. But the grunting teacher in the side that gets pushed out of the way in the grocery store might very well be an AI voice that we've created.
Yeah.
And you would be told that they're using your voice and you would be paid for it.
Exactly.
Might not be much compared to an actual voice job, but your hard work of creating the voice itself, because it can be taxing, would be done.
Yeah, absolutely. I know from one of the TTS jobs I did where I sat, it was over like one Christmas, and I had to do sort of like 5 hours recording a day. And it was very challenging because it puts you in some kind of weird mindset. And in the end, the whole thing sort of fell over, and I never got anything for it, which was a real shame. But,
do you know that?
Well, exactly.
I'm very suspicious now. It's terrible.
I need to know where, because that's the thing about data, isn't it? It's so copyable and it's so duplicatable that is where the problem lies. I was also talking to the guy who's was the original voice of Google in the UK. And I met him at the One Voice conference in 2018, I think it was, and he did a talk there about how he got, I think, like £500 or something just ridiculous, and signed sort of his rights away before text-to-speech was even a glimmer on the horizon. It was, he literally did, it was like a science experiment kind of at that time, but happened to sign his rights away. And now whenever I hear someone's GPS and it's like, turn right in 34 meters, I always think, oh, there's that guy again. He's omnipresent, and it's so hard to extricate yourself once you've gone down that route. Yeah,
I mean, I think this was brought to light in North America with Siri originally, when she was recorded and didn't know that this was what it was going to be for. So all these things coming out and speaking loud and proud about, you can't do this. It is a wake-up call to the people that are doing it. And I think as long as we can make some differences in the industry and get the ground rules set, it's just not going to be an issue. And AI is going to exist and alongside voice talent. And I always say, you can have a good video, or you can have a luxurious, Jaguar driving down the street, or you can drive I don't want to belittle any car, but a less expensive car, or you can have a luxury car. And the less expensive car is your AI voice. But you might never get that humanization of the luxury car that's not going to go away. So I don't think that our jobs are going to go away. I think they're going to change, but we need to change with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, flexibility is the key, isn't it? That's the same for any kind of ecosystem. Is that you want to move with the environment. That's the whole thing about evolution. Is that you try a bunch of different things and then go with the one that gives you the best result, sort of going forward. So we do have to evolve.
Well, turn it into the voiceover industry. I mean, we take our training, we do our coaching, we come up with a commercial demo, and what starts as buy this product, introducing, has turned into this, oh, you should just try it. And it's like, wait a minute, I didn't train like that 2 years ago. Yeah. So we're constantly learning and training and growing and staying up on the trends and beating the trends and doing all those things. And this is no different. It's just how to make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of trends and moving a little bit sideways on topics, I've noticed that that briefs that come through now, and sort of the things from agents, especially in the States, and I know agents have been talking about this, but the fact that they now say, here's the fee, it's $3,000, whatever. This includes all lifts, all versions, all cuts, blah, blah, blah. There's a 60, a 30, a 15, a 6, and a 5, and that's all included in the fee. And we can make other ones that we don't have to pay you. And it's kind of like halfway to the TTS. They've got a real voice to do it, but they're basically like, anything you say in the session can be used to make any other work at any time. And I recently had a client who came back and said, I did some kind of commercial, 6 months ago, and they said, oh, we've got a pickup on that commercial. I was like, pickup? It's a bit late for a pickup. It's it's been 6 months, and it was like the script was like they changed the price, or it was a new offer. And I was like, this isn't a pickup. This is a new work. This is this is the next stage in the campaign. You can't call this a pickup. And then I just see that there are these inroads that people are trying to get to sort of, make it cheaper. And it's important that we're aware of them and kind of, and realize when our value is kind of being hijacked.
Well, they wouldn't say it if, let's just say it was a television commercial or a radio commercial. They don't go to the people and go, oh, you know what? We're just going to make a minor change and keep running this for 13 weeks. They go, you don't have to change anything. But if you want to run it for 13 more weeks, it's going to cost you. And it's the same on the other side. I mean, you change a price, it's a new spot.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a new spot.
Yeah, it's a new work, isn't it? But it's interesting that this confluence now of you've got more than this, but you've got two different types of voice buyers. The ones who are like small business owners who've never dealt with the voice industry before, and they've maybe just bought things from the supermarket or employed tradespeople or whatever. And then the sort of advertising agencies who are much more used to the kind of licensing model, etc. And it's sometimes there's quite a lot of education that needs to happen, especially on those kind of lower paid, sort of more self-service gigs on the pay-to-plays, especially when people want to reuse things or make modifications. Have you found that with that you're having to educate a lot more?
Yes. Yeah. You change your proposals on online castings to say, this price that I'm quoting needs to be discussed further with regards to usage, and we just need to put it in there.
Yeah.
And so here's the thing: you can have a contract and you can have an email agreement, and they are both legally binding. So if you put something in your proposal and they hire you, they've read that. That counts as an agreement. Right. So you've opened the door to a discussion that can be held up in a court of law. So it may be.
That's very interesting to know, because one of my big things has been with the pay-to-plays is to put in, as you say, like this is an indicative cost. It's going to be confirmed when I know who the client is, when I know the usage, et cetera, et cetera. Because I did get burnt, a few years ago with, people saying, oh, I've got a little corporate video, can you do this? And then it turns out it's, for Facebook, and you find it in the session with the client. And so,
That's right.
There's all kinds of awkward things that go on like that, where it's just, I want to try and avoid that in the future. So,
well, and that's part of it too. Just because Facebook's putting together a little tiny video doesn't mean it's going to cost any more or less than the guy down the street who's starting his own business. But it comes down to media buy, and they're paying thousands of dollars for it to be seen around the world. You kind of get a piece of that, right? So when a big company puts it together, they have a huge budget, and the voiceover is part of that budget. You get somebody working out of their basement that's trying to make a living for Joe's Burgers on the corner. Different story. And why would you advertise Joe's Burger on the corner of a small town in another country? You just wouldn't. So you have to look at the details, or at least ask what the details are. Where exactly is this going to be aired? When I love the line, it's just online. It's just going to be an online video. Oh, so the whole world is going to see this. This is what you're saying, right? It's different if you do a landing page. I'm going to Gravy for the Brain, Oceania. Well, that's where it's going to get seen. Yeah. But if I say it's for Honda, it can be seen anywhere around the world.
Exactly.
That's talk.
Exactly, it's talk. And the interesting thing is as well with, and I've gone through this journey with royalties, in terms of, you do a web video for sort of a big company that they say is like, well, it's only going to be organic for 13 weeks kind of thing. But the thing is, once you post something on the internet, it never gets taken down. Like there's always a copy somewhere. So effectively, it's not really moral for you to charge them until the day you die for that thing that they're not really using anymore, but it will still be on the internet. So there's an interesting balance to be struck there as well, don't you think?
Yes. One of the things I always think of is in commercial products, a lot of products get changed very quickly. So it's something to be considered, especially if there's a price in there. And that's where important. Any script changes will warrant a new session fee or whatever, a new cycle, new 13-week fee for this. Like you have to. So again, the terms need to be further clarified prior to accepting this job. Is all you have to say, and then get it in writing, whether it be an email or a written out contract, but something.
Right. So I'm going to transition into the sort of the more finding out more about the you as a voiceover artist, and I like to sort of put there's kind of three, like a Venn diagram. There's three different bits to voiceover. There's the business, the tech, and the craft. And my first question was actually, funnily enough, beautiful segue, is how do you price voiceover in terms of the business of your voiceover? And has it been something that you've sort of learnt how to do, just like you learn how to operate your equipment and just how you learn to use your voice? And like, how do you go about now? Do you have a fixed rate card, or do you go off the industry rate cards? How does that all work with you?
I use the Gravy for the Brain rate guide is actually what I do. I'm one of those people that I could sell you the moon, but as soon as you ask me how much, I go, well, it's only $2,499. But you know what? I'll give you, how about 2,000? I stumble my way through it if you have to ask me in person. So I'm happy to say the industry standard rate for a spot like this for this much usage, according to, is this much. Now, I don't have a rate guide per se. Like one that's etched in stone that's on my website or anything. So I do. You have to kind of get a feel of the client and how many people are involved and how long it's going to be. And is it regional? Is it local? Is it national? There's so many different things. So I don't want to have anything etched in stone. But a lot of times, if it's someone that's reached out to me and says, hey, I've got this thing. And I go, well, that sounds really interesting. Can you give me a few details? And what's your budget?
Totally.
Right. And then I can have something to work with if they come back with. They go, well, it's just a little video. Well, nothing's just a little video. This is exciting and I want to work with you. But I need to know where it's there. Like, just keep prying them for information until they give you a number. And then you can go, oh, I was only going to charge. Okay, I can work with this. I'm not going to bill you your top because I wouldn't have. But I'm certainly not going to bill you my bottom because it warrants more than that because of the description you've given me. Yeah. So how to bid, it's a learning curve. It really is. But we do have guides to use and I'm happy to use them. And we try to keep them current as times are changing.
Yeah, it is a struggle, isn't it? Keeping that price. But it's almost like there's so many different ways that even in different territories and in countries that people charge, like the whole British system with the BSF, with the basic studio fee, and like anything industrial is just done for £250 an hour. And the thing is, like the British system, it bugs me how it is time based. So if you're a rubbish voiceover artist and it takes you 5 hours to get through it as opposed to 3 hours, you get paid less. It's like, how does that work?
Or if you're really good, you can do it in about 3.5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
I've read it, edited it, and off the go. You know, it is funny. And I find in Canada, if you say in perpetuity, it just doesn't seem to hold as much concern. We're certainly not a small country, but it just doesn't seem to, whether they don't use it as much. But in the US, absolutely. It's like you say in perpetuity and you go, no, I'm not doing it.
Right. Okay. So are you saying from a client perspective or from the voice talent perspective about
From what I see, even when I see it from my agents, they don't like it. But if it's a Canadian-based job, it just doesn't have the longevity that other places seem to. I won't say that's necessarily across the board in every field, but it's not as alarming as when you see in perpetuity, say in the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. Where you hear about people, them, I don't know, remaking commercials or something, or like we were talking about earlier with the same campaign later on.
Yeah, so I haven't seen as much concern. I mean, I try to say, and I certainly, my agent in Canada tries to say no, but it just doesn't seem to be, it doesn't carry as much weight as it does elsewhere, it seems.
That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, and that word in perpetuity has been quite a recent phenomenon. And that, and I can understand why with big corporations, they want to make sure that nothing's going to sting them in 3 years' time. You know, their company gets sold to someone else and suddenly they've got this bill for, a huge amount. So I can see the business case of why it is. But, I mean, for me, it's been like, I basically, I charge... if it's organic on the internet and no paid placement, then effectively you get an in perpetuity license because it's just sitting on the internet, and if people see it, then good on them. And it's based on sort of company size. But if there is a media buy, then obviously you want a piece of that media buy. If someone's spending $1 million to place it, then it's got to be relative to that because they're obviously getting more value from you.
But it's not just that. It's if it's sitting on the internet and somebody's website, and the only time you're going to go there is if you really need to research that little thing, that's not really going to interfere with you doing anything with their competition. But when it's out there and it's media buy and it's thrown in your face and it's, buy this drink or buy this burger or whatever, shop here, it's like that can be detrimental to your work, trying to get work elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's also the same thing. Like I used to say, if it's a big, huge company like Microsoft, it's got to be absolute top dollar. But there's a difference between Microsoft making an above the line campaign for like Microsoft that everyone in the world will see, and like a tiny how-to video on one of their servers deep, buried in one of their server stacks that maybe 5 engineers are going to see in their life. It is technically for Microsoft, but there's a big difference in viewership and reach.
Yes. And I've done a lot of internal work for very big companies. I just don't say that because you won't ever see it unless you're an employee of that company.
Totally. Yeah.
So I know I did it. But I don't need anyone else to know I did it. It's just no one's going to ever see it unless you work there.
Yeah. How do you keep track of royalties? Do you have a system?
CRM. I have a very basic CRM that, and honestly, if I have to refresh, it's been a year, it's in my calendar. About 3 weeks prior to the term, it comes up with the client information, the job, the date of the email, and I'll fire off an email directly.
That's a great idea. Yeah. That's something that I'm the worst at that in the world. I've got to really
It's
start
hard.
doing that. Yeah.
It's funny. I don't have half a dozen clients that pay me large amounts of money to do their spots, but I have a large number of clients that send me a lot of work and constantly new ones through online casting sites or word of mouth. And it does get challenging. And I would bet I've probably missed one or two. I actually had relationships with your clients are huge. 2 weeks ago, I got an email just after this TikTok thing hit. I got an email going, oh, by the way, can you send me an invoice? We're not renewing until October, but we want to make sure we've got this down. Okay. Thank you.
I
one less thing to do in September. So
exactly.
Yeah, it does happen.
Yeah. And there are some really good clients. Usually the big agencies are actually really good at that, where they will send you an email like 3 months out saying, please invoice us for $1,000 for the rights to use your voice ongoing, which is fantastic. It's so good that they respect that integrity.
Yeah. So a calendar when you're starting out is easily just put it on the date you need to refresh it, and it'll fire you off a reminder. Hey, you need to contact these people.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I need to start doing that. Pay to plays, you mentioned them just before, online casting sites. What percentage of your business do you get from pay to plays? Because there's a big question at the moment, especially beginner talent sort of get a bit. They're like, should I join pay to plays? And I'm definitely a proponent.
So my history is when I first started. I was able to get my very first job off a pay-to-play, off an online casting site. And then I got another one. And then I got another one. And that was really almost the only place I was getting work. But then because I had some work, I was able to get an agent. So when I think of people, should I or shouldn't I? The answer is yes. Especially with online castings now. I mean, there's so much discussion about them. You can find out what's right, what's good, what's bad. There's different layers. So different levels. You can do what you can afford. But, and I say this, so I think some people say that you shouldn't say this. I used online casting sites to practice, but you get every script that comes across your desk that you qualify for. Now, if your tags are wrong, you might not really qualify it. Or if the client hasn't ticked the boxes correctly, you might not really qualify for it. But it doesn't hurt to read it. You're still training. You're still learning. Read it a bunch of times. Read the description. And if you go, no, I didn't get it, just hit delete. You don't have to send it because you said I'd read the script. But for that reason, it's a good practice. It's good to get in and see how quickly you can get into character and get into, the person who's telling this message and all those things. And then you kind of go, you know what? I think I'd be really good at explainer videos, or, you know what? I think I should pursue animate, but how do you know? I think to me, it's a great way to spend an hour a day just looking at scripts on online casting sites, because where else do you get that kind of exposure handed to you sitting at home?
Yeah, it's so true. I say exactly the same to my students, that there's a potential of getting jobs, but it's also just fantastic practice with real world scripts. And not only that, but the fact that even if you don't get the job, you have still read for someone who is going to cast more voices in the future, luckily. And they might keep you in mind. And
absolutely.
I've definitely got jobs off the back of not getting other jobs, if you know what I mean.
Well, and it always doesn't always happen that the person that's listening to your audition may not be the hiring person, and they come back with, I can't tell you how many times this has happened. I absolutely loved your read. I loved your audition. The client went with somebody else, but I'm going to put you on my roster, or I'm going to, keep you in mind for the next time, or I favored you so that I'll find you next time. It leads to work always down the road. But as I said, if you really read it and go, no, just hit delete, just don't submit. And it's a great place. And not only that, you're reading the direction that is current and trending. And that's important, because remember when I said at the beginning, you train and do all this, but then things change. You got to change with it. And if you were to go into a studio and they said, well, do this and this, and you go, I don't even know what you're talking about. You have to know what they're talking about. You have to know what they're looking for.
It's part of the gig.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So which pay to plays do you go to, if you name names? Which I
name names. I'm on Voice 123 and have been for years. I started on voices.com and I was doing extremely well. They changed their terms of service, so I left. I have not go back. I have a free profile there because it doesn't hurt to be found.
Yeah.
But I
Google
don't
SEO.
actually do any work there.
Yeah.
And Badalgo.
Yeah.
Voice Realm and VO Planet.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, cool. Yeah, there's so many. I feel like a new one starts each week. It's like
and Cast Voices. I just joined Cast
That's
Voices.
That's the new one, isn't it? Yeah.
And I'm on voiceovers too. Gosh, I'm on a lot. But I have if I don't book, I stop renewing, and I book on all of them. So
Yeah, fair enough. It's good. And it's also good for your Google SEO, of course. Anytime that your name is associated with the word voiceover on a different site and points back to you, that's a good thing.
Yeah. It doesn't hurt to be found. And if you can put a free profile out there and you have a legitimate demo to do it, be a free profile. It's just someone to hear you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a place to be found. I think it's a good thing. And online casting keeps changing. And if they change their terms of service and you don't agree with them, just walk away.
Fair enough. What was
but
it
read their
specifically
terms
about
of service.
The terms of service with voices.com? Was it the sort of we own all your demos part of it?
Yeah, that was kind of it back there. They had, and this goes back, but they actually had a clause in there at some point that said that voices.com owns your audio and can reproduce it for any purpose. This isn't the right wording, but reproduce it for anything they want at no remuneration to the talent. And that's when I walked away. Yeah. I don't think that clause is in there now, but then they bought an AI company and I just went, I'm on 6 other sites, so we're good.
And you do what works for you. And the final question in the kind of business section is, how do you think it's important to have a sort of a marketing strategy as a voiceover, outside of your agents and the pay-to-plays, that you're actually looking for work yourself? And what do you do in that regard?
Yes, it's important. Trust me, I had no business experience whatsoever when I started this. And I had I had 9 years at marketing, but I was marketing a multidisciplinary engineering firm, doing whatever they told me to do. And when they said, go talk about yourself and say how great you are, I went, no, I can't do this. So I do a lot of reading. I use LinkedIn. I use Facebook for pretty much business purposes only. I think if you looked at all my personal references, you'd come up with family of 10. And ex-colleagues from jobs I've held in the past, maybe another 20. And the rest are voiceover people or clients. But I think it's there's all kinds of ways to market yourself. I don't have somebody that does that for me. I probably should. I'm a little afraid of marketing, but it's important to just be confident and share your demos. Make sure that you do things on LinkedIn that show. So here's little tips like this. This is how you learn from the beginning on up. In LinkedIn, when you reply to somebody, great job, right? Your name comes up and a few little words about you. That better not be, I work at a dry cleaners if you're trying to get voiceover work. If you want to work for dry cleaners, that's, get more people there, that's fine. But if you want to be a voice actor, you need to say, Bev Standing, voiceover talent or voice actor or voiceover, like whatever combination you want, but that's what they see. So you need to make sure that's seen on every reply. LinkedIn, join the conversations. So I do that. I join groups and don't talk about you. So that is a good marketing plan for me because I don't like saying, I have great demos. I do a really good job. I have trouble with that. So by joining in their conversation and saying, well, how do you do that? And what does it mean when you say this? Or just getting involved with them, you make a response and they see Bev Standing, voice actor. If they want to reach out, they will eventually.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, interesting.
So marketing's important, but it can be subtle.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you for that marketing tip. That's fantastic. And let's pivot to the tech of voiceover. I can see you are located in your lovely, comfortable voiceover booth there. It's good size. You constructed that in your house, in your office, if you like?
It is. This is in a room that used to be a garage. My son-in-law built it for me.
Oh, nice.
He's brilliant, looked on the internet and figured out how.
Fantastic.
I got my door. Where's my door? My door is here from a secondhand store. It was in a frame, and it's an exterior door. I'll show you. It's really interesting. So I got all kinds of light, and it's an exterior teal door with double glass.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, that's what you want, isn't it? Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah, so it's in...
and what kind of soundproofing do you have? Is that stuff that you've bought off the shelf?
This was Graham Spicer. Love him. Connected me with a chap who was building these... frames, and they're just double-walled, insulated, covered in fabric, 2 pieces of wood. But I also have my booth is 2 walls. So it's drywall, a little bit of space, Roxol insulation, a little bit of space, and more frames. Drywall. Yeah. And then on the outside, as I have here, is indoor-outdoor carpeting. So kind of muffles. And I'm on a carpet on a concrete floor.
Yeah, fantastic.
I should have had a raised floor. But no complaints, so it's fine.
Yeah, it's only with concrete floors, I mentioned. It's only when someone does some drilling or there's a motor running or some air conditioning or something.
I live in the country, and all that stuff's on the other side of my house, like the air conditioning and all. It's all on the other side, so I'm good.
Oh, that's fantastic. Good job.
Yeah.
And what gear do you run? You've got a 416, it looks like. You do most of your stuff?
I have a 416. Yeah. I have my very first mic.
Oh, yeah, I meant to ask you about that because I saw it in one of the interviews.
Here it is.
Is that a Rode K2?
It's Audio Technica.
Oh, yeah.
35. I don't think they make them anymore. Nice. Yeah. And that was a cute story. I walked into a place to get a microphone because I had done an audition I was an inspector at the time, and I had a little handheld microphone. And I got asked to do a radio imaging spot, and I recorded in that and sent in the file, and the guy emailed me back and said, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I think there's something wrong with your mic.
Oh, really?
What mic? So I went to this little warehouse place that sold microphones and music equipment, and this really nice guy was helping me, asking me what I was doing it for, and hooked me up with this mic and a couple of other gadgets to keep it down. And when I asked him where I should pay, and he goes, oh, I don't work here, I'm a sound engineer, go over there. So it was hilarious. Perfect. Yeah, it was a great mic for years and years and years. This 416 is maybe a year and a half old. And I went from that to a TLM 102. Yeah. And then I switched to this because I started traveling, and this travels a little better for my voice. Oh,
they travel so well. The 416 is so robust as well. Like, I've chucked it in a suitcase, gone right around the world with it, and they just don't miss a beat, and they don't hiss at all. There's no noise. Yeah.
And they don't pick up the room as much. So you're in a hotel and you've got outside. It just doesn't get that the way the other mics do.
Totally, because they're a hypercarduate, a shotgun, and so they just
so this works for me.
That's great. Same here actually. Yeah, and I always recommend the 416 if people want a professional mic because it just does the business really well. And
I love this. Don't know what it's called, but I love it.
Yeah, that's an interesting pop filter. I hadn't seen that before, but it's
it's soft. It's like a soft steel, but it's got layers.
Absolutely, there's like 3 layers there, and it's the first one I've seen that's rounded, so it actually kind of deflects the airwave that goes forward, as opposed to actually just bounces off it. Because I've got this one here, these round circles, like the classic one.
Yeah, I have a couple of those too. Right. I like this better.
Yeah, I might see if I can get one of those.
I'll send you the details. And it just slides right over the 416 with rubber bands.
Oh, that's great.
Holds on
Yes,
tight.
please do. Please send me that. That's fantastic.
I will. I'll send you the link.
Excellent. You're kind of a tech whiz? Have you embraced the technical side of voiceover, or more of a Luddite?
Oh, I'm a tech. No. Did I convince you even for a second? I learned what I needed to learn as I needed to learn it. The same way I learned Microsoft Word and Excel and the computers when computers were first created. I learned what I needed to learn. So I started out learning how to silence a breath. And now I do pretty much everything on the fly. I'm pretty quick, but it's repetition because I do a lot of auditions. So when I started out, I had a full-time job, but I would spend 2 to 3 hours a night trying to hone my craft and come up with these auditions and try and book a job and listen to a webinar and, practice my scripts and, do whatever I needed to do. And so a good 2 to 3 hours every single night. And then if you got a job, you had to edit it. So I just got faster and faster and faster. And I studied classical music as a child, so I'm ambidextrous with my fingers. So I guess maybe it came a little quicker than.
That's interesting. I trained myself to be ambidextrous because I was doing so much editing on a pretty bad setup at the time that I ruined one of my wrists, and it was just so painful for me to edit. And I noticed that I just wasn't auditioning because subconsciously I didn't want the pain of having to edit them. So I realized that, and I was like, I need to change what I'm doing. So I thought, well, I've ruined that hand. Let's start on this other hand. And so and it takes about a week, and you have to tie your other hand behind your back because otherwise, when you're not concentrating, your other hand goes and grabs the mouse. Like if you're trying to convert, which is really interesting psychological phenomenon.
Yeah. So I have 2 screens. I have one that has the audio up and one that has the script up, and I'd be scrolling down on this side and editing with this side.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. So I'm pretty quick, but again, baby steps.
Yeah. And you
Start
use Adobe
slow.
Audition? Is that right?
I use Adobe Audition.
Yeah.
And I use the current ones. You can do a lot on the fly. But there's all kinds of shortcuts, and there's some great people out there. And there's a Facebook group for Adobe Audition. And just any group I say, go look at this group. Search to see if the question's been asked first. But and YouTube is your friend. You'd be amazed what you can learn. Still to this day, I go, wow, where did that go? And so I Google, where did this little shortcut go? And lo and behold, you'll find out. So,
exactly. Oh,
just bit by bit.
Yeah, totally. And to our sort of final section about voiceover, which is the craft of voiceover, which is kind of the area where people, people who are new to the world of voiceover think this is the only area, outside of the tech and the business side of voiceover. But I guess it's the most important when you're starting out and learning, because you have to have a good voice and be able to interpret scripts in order to build the tech and the business behind it. So what do you think makes a good voice? It's a big question.
You're going to love this because this will tie the whole day together. Emotion. Whether it's your emotion, whether you're channeling the emotion of somebody else, every word we speak with emotion. Every conversation we have emotion behind it. We have some sort of passion, some sort of connection. And if you can find connection to the words you're speaking, you can have a strange voice and still have a beautiful voice, because you'll get the message out there.
Yeah, that's so true, isn't it? I mean, that's effectively what we're hired to do, is move other people and connect with other people to communicate a message, isn't it? That's the fundamental basis of it. Yeah. Oh, wow.
That's my thought.
That's a very good answer. So well done. And like, what's the most important things that people should know when, because in recent years especially, people are like, I've heard about this voiceover thing. It sounds really easy and amazing, and I've got a good voice, and I'm going to go and do it. What are the most important things for people to know before they jump into a career with voiceover?
I think with any career, it's a business. It's a business first and foremost. You don't become a doctor without learning how to become a doctor. But if you can stick with it and follow it step by step by step, it is, in my opinion, the most fun career choice in the world. There's some pretty fun things out there, but you do something different every day, every hour, whether it's just auditioning, you're this person, then you're that person, then you're, going through this emotion, and then you're marketing, and then the community it's just the best. So if you can stick with it and just find you in the actual performance. And slowly, you didn't just get behind the wheel of a car and go on a highway. It's like just bit by bit by bit, you'll get it. Because getting up in the morning is not work. It's like, ooh, the sun came up. I get to go do something today. I love it. There couldn't be anything more fun.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's like that thing, if you do love what you do, then you never work a day in your life. And I still don't really consider voiceover like work. I would do this even if I didn't require money, because it's such a creative outlet.
And the people are wonderful. I've been in a ton of different jobs throughout my life, and the community, the support, it's just such a happy place to be. I couldn't think of anything better.
Absolutely. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And do you think anyone can be a good voiceover? Or do you think it is quite a sort of a niche occupation that only suits a few people?
I don't think everybody can be a voice actor. I think more people can be than they perhaps think they can be. It's hard. It's a lot of work and time and commitment. And if you're finding it interesting and enjoying it, then I think there's a really good chance. And I'm like you, I'm a territory controller in Canada, and we're mentoring people. And sometimes, you'll get someone that'll come across your desk and they'll read and you go, But after a while, when they start to get it, you think even with that voice, it's just so unique. It's so different. Absolutely. They just have to get beyond I'm reading you a script.
Totally. Yeah. And there is a huge shift in the industry. With the briefs coming through all of the scripts that I see now say, not an announcer, can't sound like a voiceover, want it to sound like a regular person, But they just have to, like you say, not sound like they are in a studio reading a script. And
That's right.
Yeah.
Ums and ahs and pauses and all those things that listen when you talk.
Yeah.
If you can sound like that, you can do this. It's an art, but that's why we take lessons.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And do you do characters as well as quote unquote straight voiceover? I still consider straight voiceover a character, kind of.
I know what you're saying. I have. I don't, as a rule, do video games and whatnot. But the last job I did was a troll. I was an old lady troll in the Phipps Conservatory in Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is the state, Pennsylvania. Sorry, I'm Canadian. I just a little moment there. Okay, we'll go back. And so I'm this little old lady that you have to answer these questions to, and I've done some little kid stuff and whatnot. And I've done like witchy things for some video stuff, trailers and stuff, but it's not my main focus.
And I've definitely found that because I kind of wanted to challenge myself a couple of years ago and thought, I want to give the gaming thing a go. Without kind of having appreciation for the fact that you need to learn everything again. Like it is like an entirely different industry. Like the marketing is different, the contexts are completely different. Your studio setup even has to be a bit different for all the movement and the loud volume that comes out rather than doing straight voiceover. So, yeah, fascinating in terms of it's a completely parallel, separate industry almost.
It's amazing. I've watched a few videos on, and I've been in a few training sessions at conferences and stuff for people that do video games, and you're like, wow, is that how you do? They go in for the session for 4 hours and do nothing but grunt.
Yeah, I know.
You have to die. There's a gentleman I'm friends with. He lives in Spain at the moment, but I think in one video game he was killed 2,412 times or something, and you have to sound different every time. Are you being killed with a gun, a knife, a car, a tree, a heart attack? Like there's hundreds of ways to die, and you have to know how to do them all, and then stand up and still laugh and be in that character. So it's an art. And
look after your voice too. That's the hardest thing I find about gaming. Is just the toll it takes on your voice.
Well, that's Screaming. Where you have to. That's where learning placement is huge.
Yeah. It is, yeah, exactly. Learning how to scream and use your voice properly.
So we'll go back to TikTok. A little less strenuous for that job, anyway.
Get the TTS to do it for you.
That's right.
So what's your biggest job today, apart from being the voice of TikTok? Just kidding.
Probably that.
Yeah.
As far as would people have heard me, I've been in the Super Bowl, which is a big football thing in North America, a couple of times, but again, just regionally. And I always say this, the most I did. I narrated at one season of a TV show in Canada that didn't make it to season 2, sadly. So I've done a lot of one-ofs kind of thing. But I think the one that hits home the most is I did a couple of commercials for Kraft. Oh. This is an original Kraft teddy bear from back in the 60s. Wow. Because my father was an advertising executive and he had the Kraft account. So this is the smoothie bear. And this was my teddy bear growing up. So when I got hired to do the squirrel on the roof, is what it was about. Some guy jumping off a roof in a squirrel costume, but it was for Kraft. And that was probably the nearest and dearest to my heart.
Oh, that's lovely, isn't it? I love that you have such you have personal items in your voiceover studio. And I've found it common about and I think it says a lot about our craft that we keep the most personal and emotionally connective things close to us when we're doing this work. It's kind of
it helps with all your emotions.
Yeah.
You know, every like I said, everything is an emotion. Every time we speak, there's an emotion attached to it. And the little things you have. J. Michael Collins Euro Retreat at the K Club. I have another bear. It's his buddy. But anyway, yes, I have all kinds of things. But it's important. I mean, so here's one. I don't know if this means anything to you, but in Canada, the poppy comes out on Remembrance Day in remembrance to the veterans. So do you need to pull at a heartstring? So that's here.
That's very interesting.
There's all kinds of ways to.
That's such an interesting concept, is to keep you're like the object which you have an emotional tie to there as your kind of emotional palette that you can draw on physically as you're voicing something. That's fascinating. I hadn't thought about that.
It works for me.
Yeah. I mean, I've just got all of these, I've got a selection of desk toys, like fidget thingies for when I'm voicing. And I used to click a pen, and of course that ruins your recording. So I've got all these silent toys that I can, and I've got this kids' toys, this squidgy kind of gum stuff.
I have a cloud. Cool. I got this. I was at a conference for e-learning and training and whatnot. And this was a giveaway, and I loved it. It's just a cloud, but it's that same. You've got the client on the other going, can we just have that one more time?
Exactly. Fantastic. Oh, well, we have reached our hour, but it's been such a pleasure to talk to you today. And I wish you all the best with your case against TikTok. And again, thank you from the entire industry for standing up for what is right and what we need to do going forward to ensure that we all have a livelihood. And that we're all respected in that respect. So what are some ways that people can support you or get in touch or follow you on social media?
It's pretty easy. Bev Standing, bevstanding.com, Twitter @BevStanding, Facebook, Bev Standing, Instagram, Bev Standing.
No surprises there.
It's pretty simple. I didn't do anything fancy. I will say there is a GoFundMe that's set up, and that's to help cover legal fees if necessary. I tried not to let that happen, but too many people want to help, and they felt that was the only way they could. I will say that any money not used for legal fees will be donated to the Brad Venable scholarship fund. Brad Venable was an incredibly talented voice actor that passed away from COVID last year. So they have set up a scholarship for him in the US. And I have asked if I can donate anything not used to that. So either way, it would go to a great cause.
Brilliant.
And thank you for allowing me to use and abuse your platform to get this message out, because I think it's a really important one. Again, it's not about me just getting paid for the work I did. That's a plus. It's so much bigger, and it's important that everybody realize that this is what our industry is facing, and we have to be on top of it in a positive, helpful, agreeable way to make it work for everybody. Let's not be difficult. Let's just make this work.
Absolutely. Bev Standing, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Toby.